China EV insurance registrations for the week ending July 14th show some pretty interesting numbers. NIO at 3,400, Tesla at 11,400, Xiaomi at 2,300, BYD at a whopping 61,800, but that does include plug-in hybrids, which I don't count. Do you? Let's find out. Let's have a quick conversation. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. So joining me, as he so often does from his dark dungeon of doom, is Mark from the Tesla Life. How are you, Mark?
Doing well, Brian. Thanks so much for letting me join you in your dark room today.
It's a kitchen. It's a dark kitchen. You can see the sink there if I move out of the way enough. It's pretty cool.
Go. There you go.
Yeah. So we found this pretty interesting article here. We've got some, Xiaopeng, 1,700 registrations. Li Auto, 11,000. That's quite good for them. Zeekr at 3,300. Aito at 9,400. I do not know how to say that. So this first chart we're looking at excludes the big boys. Tell me what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it excludes the big boys, but it's a chart of insurance registrations. And in China, for some reason, sometimes they publish this information weekly. Other times they don't. There seems to be an up and down thing. The article indicates that the Insurance Institute hadn't published weekly for some time and just started to publish weekly again. So I'm not sure why that's an on again, off again policy. But in this case, it's at least giving us some view into what's happening again weekly, as in a few weeks ago it was not.
Now, looking at this, Li Auto at 11,000 for the week, that's awfully strong.
Could that be an amalgamation of a few weeks? I know it does say July 8th to 14th, but it does seem huge.
It does seem awfully, awfully big. That would be, it's more likely that it's not a bunch of weeks of misreporting, but a bunch of weeks that all hit at the same time in terms of production. But we'll scroll down and take a look here. Li Auto stopped sharing. That's interesting. After about a year of doing so. So that's what you were talking about there. So here, we've got this chart for NIO. So these are pretty strong numbers, thousands a week.
Yeah, a bit of a fluctuation there in the last 3 weeks, though, right? From a 6,000 down to like a 5, and then down to a 3,500 area.
Yeah.
So bit of a fluctuation, but overall holding steady. Staying in the 5,000 area.
EV maker delivered a record 57,000 vehicles in the second quarter, unexpectedly exceeding the upper end of its guided range. That's fantastic. So NIO, again, don't see a whole lot of those outside of China. But here's the Li numbers, and you can see that some of them are combined, but even still, Li Auto is doing some big numbers.
They are. They absolutely are.
Not what we saw at the end of last year, but after a big fall off in the beginning of January, they seem to be doing quite well.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Li Auto as to, are they outside of China much at all, or are they strictly China?
So what I learned from Darren Jung, who has a great YouTube channel, I met him on a panel in Austria, is that none of these brands, apart from BYD, have a serious presence outside of China. So right now I am, as you know, in Monterrey, Mexico still, as of the time of this recording. And I'm looking at, there's BYD, there's GAC, there's JAC, SAIC, BAIC, Omida. There are a whole bunch of brands. Chery, they're all here. But you never see them on the road. I've seen one BYD, and I've seen maybe 10 Teslas, and that's it. And that's despite the fact that gasoline is like $4 or $5 a gallon, and electricity is quite reasonable. It's like as low as it is in some of the lowest states in the US. So for whatever reason, these Chinese cars are just not resonating with people. I'm planning to go to the BYD dealership on Saturday for a test drive. And I'm
Ah,
hoping to drive both the Atto and the Seal, because those are two very different but exciting cars in different ways. So I'm assuming, go ahead.
it'll be interesting to see if you can get any other insight as to why the other brands aren't being seen at all around. Because they are setting up, as you mentioned, manufacturing in the country, or at least distribution points, and yet there's not that many.
The distribution is here, the factories are not. The factories are still just proposed. If they were to build a factory here, the cars would be heading to at least Canada, but probably the US as well. That's still down the road a bit.
Okay.
So Li doing pretty well. Xiaopeng, or as I've recently learned, they're called in Europe Xpeng. Their registrations are lower than Li Auto, lower than a lot of them. A couple thousand a week. That's only, 10,000 in June. Not exciting. Not exciting. And they've got a pretty good lineup. Then we get to Tesla here, and we're seeing, boy, it's so lumpy. I wonder what could cause that.
It's certainly a lumpy chart. Absolutely.
Now, to clarify for the folks at home, the reason this is so funny is because there used to be these cyclical stories that you'd see. The first week of every quarter, they'd say, oh my gosh, look at Tesla's sales have collapsed in China, while they're putting them on boats to export them to other markets. And then those markets would get the cars, sell the cars. All of a sudden, the numbers look good again. And then you've got the end of quarter, when sales in all those other markets dry up completely. And they'd say, oh, look, they're the lowest they've ever been in Norway. It's like, well, right, because they finished selling them. They're not on the boat. I mean, so this is a pattern that we've seen continue. The hope was to unwind the delivery wave. It really hasn't. So this number, while not super exciting, it's not that bad. And this number, the week before, if you look at it as a seasonal dip, it is not as dippy as it's been in the past.
Yeah.
So these are terrible, awful, tragic numbers until you
add some
learn
context to what's really happening.
until you learn how to read, Mark. Can you read? Can you? But the problem is these people aren't bound by the rules of honesty. And if they were, they wouldn't be Tesla Q in the first place.
Kind of reminds me of how we used to look at Fremont figures back in the day when it first started to roll up, when Fremont was supplying the world, and they were saying, oh, the sales in the US have just tanked. It's not because of that. They were putting them on boats and shipping them to Europe.
We just watched them send 5,000 of them. We're tracking the boat in real time. Do you remember that? People did that.
I remember that.
So the US EV maker sold 59,000 in China in June, down 20% from a year earlier, while up 7.3% from May. Big deal. The biggest news is the wait time. On July 11th, the wait time in China for Model 3 went from 1 to 4 weeks to 2 to 4 weeks, and the Model Y remained unchanged at 1 to 3 weeks. And we have seen newer than this. Should have pulled it up. I apologize. It's now that 2 to 4 weeks is now 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. Maybe it's 3 to 5, but the wait time is getting longer. The demand for Model 3 in China has increased due to in part at least, due to the 0% financing offer for a limited time only. Get it while it's hot.
Yeah, exactly. But what's interesting is still the numbers of the Model Y compared to the Model 3 is quite a substantially more. The Model Y is the reigning king, and it doesn't look like it's going to give up its title to the refreshed Model 3 anytime soon.
No, it does not. And then we've got the BYD's numbers instead. BYD sold 341,000 NEVs, which includes the hybrids in the first half, so I'm not counting those. BYD's passenger electric in the first half, 726,000. Now you'll notice that is lower than what Tesla has sold, but still a very strong, very serious number.
Yeah.
And so yeah, BYD not to be discounted. Xiaomi, the money, has got their numbers out. And what they're looking at here, now they had peaked at 3,500 a week, and this number is down at 2,000. I don't believe that is due to a lack of demand. I think it's due to a limited appetite for catastrophic financial losses on the part of Xiaomi. These are made by BAIC on contract, and BAIC can make them at whatever pace you would like. We have the capacity. And they're selling them at a loss. And we don't know how big the loss is, but they're selling these pretty new, very new, pretty amazing cars for less than Tesla, and they've said flat out, we are losing money, but we're doing it to gain market share.
Wow. Yeah. That's a bit of a gamble, isn't it?
So Xiaomi is a very large electronics manufacturer. They make cell phones and other things. They have the money to burn. So they're not like out with their hand out begging for money to keep burning like we've seen with other manufacturers in China and the US. So clearly that's a competitive advantage.
That's a market strategy that only works for so long. Like whether you have money to burn or not, you don't have unlimited money to burn. You're obviously playing a game on time, and you believe that you can gain the market share and keep people buying your product based on the great experience they had with the previous product.
That is absolutely true. And what Xiaomi does that's different is because they're a cell phone maker, they've got really apparently very good app integration, infotainment, and really the software of the car is very good. It's the sort of thing that you would have thought Volkswagen might be more interested in over Rivian, but Rivian's is also very good. So we got to the letter X. Clearly we must be at the end of the alphabet, but we're not. Zeekr delivered 20,000 vehicles. Again, these are decent numbers, but it's pretty much exclusive to China. 4,000 dipped again. Doesn't concern me. I don't think that means that they're in any kind of real trouble. And of course, you're a huge Zeekr fan. Why don't you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, put me on the spot with Zeekr, a name that I've learned about maybe 3 hours ago.
Yeah. So there's also, apparently, we're not going entirely alphabetical because we also have Leap Motors. I mean, there's a lot of brands here, but 4,000 a week, that is serious volume. That's 200,000 a year. And of course, 4,000 is about the peak, but still 350, 400,000 units is pretty serious numbers.
You notice what Leap Year's connected to is Huawei, the cell phone maker.
Oh, is that what they are?
Jointly created by them.
Ah, well, that gives them an advantage because Huawei has fantastic software and integration. Yep. And then Aito came out of nowhere here. We're only looking back a couple of years from no production to 8 to 12,000 a month. So that's or a week. Oh my, that's a serious brand. So then and insurance registration for premium brands. You've got all your premium brands here, Mark, your BMWs, your Mercedes, Tesla, right there behind BMW and Mercedes. Interesting. And of course, your Denza. Yeah. So that's good. That's good. And BYD, again, mixing in hybrid numbers. So I don't think that part is necessarily relevant.
It's too bad they don't give a breakout of the BEV compared to plug-in.
It's in there. It's just hidden, and CNEV Post is under no obligation to do that for us. BYD did make the numbers known. I think CNEV should have done a little bit better, but hey. So what's your takeaway? Clearly, it's the end of the road for Tesla.
I'm glad you could read the tea leaves like that because I didn't see that. But
They have so much tea there, Mark. It'd blow your mind.
so much tea is exactly right.
I can't read all these leaves, man. There's too many.
Oh my gosh. It's like the Boston Harbor on a bad day. Tea
Yeah.
leaves everywhere.
It's, well, ever since the Boston Harbor incident, I'd point out that the entire ocean is homeopathic tea.
It didn't take long.
It did not take, it's had enough time. And the more diluted it is, the more potent it is. That's how homeopathy works.
How on earth did we get this far with this joke, Brian? How
Or
on
it doesn't. Or it doesn't. It doesn't matter. You just got to have faith. And money, apparently. So, I think the takeaway here is these numbers all look good. The competition, at least in China, is getting serious. It's getting real. There are a lot of brands that are well positioned to survive.
Unlike you, Brian, I'm not familiar with the Chinese market all that much, but it would be interesting to see that obviously China has grown into a market upon its own, if not the world's largest market. It's number two. It's right there. It will be number one apparently because of its growth. But it is interesting to know that like you said, there's all these different brands battling it out within the country with sizable numbers. And it's something that looks like it's dwarfing the North American market in EVs by a long shot.
And if you look at that list again, I'll pull it up here, is that on this list, as far as I am aware, BYD and Tesla are the only ones that are profitable. The rest of them are losing money, maybe not on a per unit basis, but certainly in terms of the gross margin, the net margin. So they are all negative. So there is, of course, as you said, a limit to how much of that kind of pain you can endure. So we'll see how it goes. Any closing thoughts for us?
I'd be interested to see, since you're in Monterey, if you could find a few of the dealerships of the others. I know you're trying to get into BYD, you're going to go for a test drive, but it would be interesting to see if there's a couple others in Monterey that you could drop by and visit and see what their showrooms look like.
I do know where at least one or two of them are, and I'm hoping to do that as well this weekend. But yes, there are some neat ones. BYD has a hybrid pickup truck here that I want to say is like $35,000. Wow. And it looks good. It looks good. I don't know if I've seen one on the road because I don't know if I'd recognize it. But it's pretty interesting. So guys, in the comments, what did we miss? What do we misunderstand? Leave it. Leave it. Would you do me a favor and do that? Head on over to see what the Tesla life is all about. Link in the description. Mark does some great work. I even got a few punchlines in the chat this week. Very proud of myself. Very proud.
Brian.
But what are you going to do? So everybody else, like, subscribe, do as you will. You know what you're doing. Stay tuned. Stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots, maybe when I get back off the road and onto the next road.